Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Wil. We are starting 2026 off with some things that are themes that we're going to touch on throughout 2026. Not all inclusive, of course, but the next we're going to review Sean Achor and the Happiness Advantage, both his TED Talk and his book. We kind of blended them to take away the key themes. You're not going to want to miss this in terms of setting yourself up with the fuel that's going to fuel you to amazing 2026. But before we do, please be sure to share, subscribe, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. And want to give a shout out to Nick Menard and pay attention. The 1% push, the book's on track. You may want to tune in next week for sponsoring today's episode, as well as his previous My Amazon best-selling book, Mindset is My Degree. Is there another bestseller on the way? I think yes. How you doing this Monday, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Wil. Hello, winners. Thank you, winners. I already see that it's well on its way. So thank you all for joining the podcast and for your willingness to learn about the book and to read the book. It means a lot to me. And again, it's way on its way. But we're gonna let you know when it's reaching the bestseller book. But I'm very confident it will, based on the first week.
Yeah, exciting times. And here, number 2. And like the first one is kind of like that. It's breaking through, right? Because he'd never written a book before, and then he did, and you had such great acclaim to it. And now I know this one, you feel like this one's chock full of like some practical things that people can utilize that can really propel their journey in 2026. So
Absolutely.
please be sure to check it out. The 1% Push by Nick Menard. And we'll follow up next week with a little bit more. So you won't want to miss next week either.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Of course. So Sean Achor, for those who aren't familiar with him, his TED Talk on happiness in the workplace is one that it just cracks me up. He's got a great sense of humor. People who know me know I like to add a little levity to things from time to time, and it's a fun listen. But he obviously wrote a book based on his research that was more extensive. And so the core premise of what he was chatting about in both the TED Talk and writing about in the book is traditional thinking says success creates happiness. But his research actually proved the opposite, that happiness fuels success. And when the brain operates in a positive state, performance improves across nearly every dimension: productivity, creativity, resilience, learning speed, and leadership effectiveness. So it's not about toxic positivity. We all know some of those people like, or this is like one of my favorite things when everything is fine and everything's on fire around, stuff like that. We know people like that. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's about training the brain to operate from a state that maximizes cognitive capacity. But high-level thoughts from you before we jump into our quotes and quips?
So I was excited about that one because I was not as familiar as you were. But when you brought a couple of days ago this idea, I was jumping more into it, and I think that I aligned very well to it. So I know you do as well, and I don't want to spill the tea too much now, because I know the quotes and quips will align even more about what we're going to talk about. So let's jump on our favorite segment.
All right, here we go. Ready? Time for our favorite segment, quotes and
quips.
Oh, good enough for government work. All right, here we go, folks. So let's jump right into it. So we kind of touched on the first quote from Sean Achor from his book. And the quote is, "Success does not bring happiness. Happiness brings success." Thoughts on that one?
I love it. Again, like every quote we ever share on the podcast, because we believe, of course, in the quote we share. But how many times, definitely when I was younger in Belgium, maybe it's a Belgium thing, but when I was younger, it's like, I will make it and then I will be super happy. Everything will go better. My family situation will go better. My relationships will be better because I will be succeeding. I don't have to worry about money, worry about paying the bills. And it's so the opposite. That's true. Be happy in your day to day with the finance you have, with the relationships you have. Fix those things, fix your relationships before you try to figure it out a way to make money to fix it. Because I guarantee you, if something is not right in your life when you make $50,000 a year, they will not be right in your life when you make $500,000 a year. But if you are happy when you are broke, which we all been in there, you will be even more happy when you are successful. That's the way it goes. I hate the say, you know, money brings, makes people bad. No, bad people with money will be even worse.
Mhm.
But great people with money will be even better because they will be probably doing stuff for charity. They will be sharing their wealth with people around them. And that's just human being. No, is there exceptions? Like everything in life, you will see exceptions in those principles. But we're not talking on this podcast about the exceptions. We try to teach you about the principles that we know data wise are true. And so I love his quote, and basically everything about his book and about his TED talk is around that, the principle of do the right thing, be happy before, and you will be even more happy and you will do even more great things after.
Yeah, no, well said. And I think two things floated in my mind. One was I remember us sitting at the dining table with my parents, and they used to always be like, "Oh, if we could only win the lottery, everything would be all right." And then on occasion when somebody would win the lottery, I remember my dad just railing about how much they had to pay in taxes. I'm like, "Who cares how much they had to pay in taxes? Like, for a few dollars, they just made, how many millions of dollars." And it always floored me on that. And then the second thought was about, uh, listening to some really high achievers in terms of sports athletes, and how many times they say that once they win, they didn't get quite as much joy from winning the event itself. It was the journey, that really mattered to them, and they actually were a little bit, I won't say deflated after winning a championship or something like that, but the high wasn't as euphoric. It was more about the journey and what it took to lead to that achievement that meant more.
I love it. I think two points about your dad saying that's typical people who never really built businesses or understand that. And it was the same with my dad.
Mm,
Um, and I remember a few years back, someone told me, when are you gonna consider yourself rich when it comes to money? Because I never talk money. I always talk experience, freedom, like I mentioned in the last couple of episodes or so. Um, and I'm like, I didn't mention how much money I want in my hands. I said, when I will be paying during tax season $1 million in taxes. And they were like, are you crazy? I'm like, listen, I live in Florida. If I pay $1 million in taxes,
yeah. Yeah, you're doing well. Yeah, because we don't have
exactly. So when,
many taxes.
we had the Powerball recently, 1.4 billion or whatever it is, or it was. And if you win that, you will pay probably 600 to $700 million taxes.
Yeah.
But trust me, your bank account will be a lot fatter even after paying those taxes. So it's all
Yeah.
relative, like it's all relative. Now, we're not going to get into politics because in France, for example, if you make more than 2 million euro a year, you pay 70% taxes. That's outrageous. But I mean, that's not the case in Florida.
Yeah,
So
thankfully.
I would more than happy with a smile writing a check of 500, $600 million if I make 1.4 billion, at the lottery. But that's
Right there
that's
with
that
you.
that's something that's something else. And then about the journey for sport, I think it's amazing that you brought that up. I mean, I'm mad at myself. I didn't even think about that first because it's so true. It's how many time, and again, it's a little bit morbid, but how many time you hear story with people who are making tons of money and they commit suicide.
Mm,
So
yeah.
if money was bringing happiness, why would that happen? And it's not exceptions. It happens more often than you think. Like definitely with athletes. And it's because they believed that the money would bring them joy. And it's actually not. If you are lonely before, you will be lonely after. You will have
Yeah.
fake friends, fake everything. So so again, make sure that that you make your life the best positive life for yourself, whatever it means, and be happy in your everyday before you have money. And trust me, you will be even more happy when you have money.
Yeah.
So love
Well
it.
said. Yep. Well said. All right. So let's go to the quip. And the quip, so this is, we're not going to refer too much to 2025, but 2025 had a high velocity of change and events that happen regardless of whether you're self-employed or you work for a company. Like there was a lot going on in 2025. And one of the things that surfaced is burnout, people feeling burnout, and came across this quip and would love to get your thoughts. So the quip is from Adam Grant. He's a famous author. And the quote is the quip, sorry, is burnout is what happens when motivation outpaces meaning. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, as a leader, I'm pretty sure you heard a lot of times that before. It's like share the why with your team, why you're doing something, and what is the end goal. And it's maybe as you as a leader, it's maybe natural and you don't understand that, but it's not natural for everybody. So if you are not sharing those things, people are just, why would they be motivated to do anything if they don't know why they're doing it? So your pom pom girl or cheerleader leadership may work for a short time, but it's very hard to keep that pace if people don't understand the meaning of the reason why we do what we do. And that's the way my mind went when I heard about that quip like 10 minutes ago. And that's why I wanted to share that. Make sure, like Simon Sinek, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have his book as a highlight his book soon with the start with why.
Mhm.
But it's so true. Like understand the reason why you do something, and you will be able to keep the motivation up a lot longer, and you will be able to coach your people a lot better because they understand. And that's key for me in order to avoid as much as possible burnout because of lack of motivation.
Yeah, makes total sense. I was thinking like when people have like winners club or president's club, and that could be a milestone or a reflection of meaningful work. But if that is the goal, it kind of goes back to what you're saying before about money doesn't necessarily make you happy. Like you have to find a higher purpose typically to power through. So if you really want to make winner circle, or you really want to make a certain revenue target, or you really want to make some sort of achievement, what is the meaning behind that? What is that fuel that's gonna drive you? If you're focused on your clients, chances and you're really focused on them getting an amazing benefit out of your product or service or a high ROI. If you focus on the value for your customer, then a lot of your things will come to fruition in terms of your monetary goals or like achievements like winner circle or that. That the winner circle can't be the necessarily the reason why. To your point, there's exceptions to every rule. Some people that could may work, but for most, that's not going to power you through the rejections you're going to get, or the delays, or something sitting in procurement, or a client who's hesitant about making their deposit on their travel because they're just unsure about the investment on that. You gotta have the fuel, and it's gotta be other oriented, and typically, that will lead to you achieving those milestones than the milestone itself.
I love it. It will be used as motivation at
Mm,
some point, but it cannot be the driver.
right.
Um, and I think the biggest motivation when you get there is for people who are close to it, close to the deadline. That may be an extra motivation. But when people are mid-year and they are 10% of their goal, you think that the target of the end of the year will be motivating them or deflating them? Because it's gonna be, oh my God, I'm so far behind. I'm not gonna reach it. That's actually the opposite of what you wanna achieve. That as a senior leader, that's gonna have an opposite effect because it's gonna deflate people. I cannot reach that. I'm already so far behind. So it's gonna only impact people who are on pace. which is not the people that you need to actually motivate the most. So very dangerous to have that kind of thing. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So what we did, winners, is we collated Sean Achor's TED Talk, which I highly recommend. That one had me laughing a few times when he gave that talk, and his book called The Happiness Advantage. So there are 7 principles with leadership takeaways that we kind of came up with as blending the two sources. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take it in 2 batches. I'm going to read 4, and then Nick will choose one to go deeper in, and then we'll wrap up with the final 3. And same, Nick can choose the one we go deeper in. So I'll read off the first 4 here with a quick summary, and then Nick, you choose. So the first one is apropos the happiness advantage. So positive brains outperform neutral or stress brains by wide margins. There's a lot of data that he shares that supports that. The second is the fulcrum and the lever. Your mindset, the fulcrum, determines how much effort the lever is required to move outcomes. The third is what he refers to as the Tetris effect. And that is what you repeatedly focus on rewires your brains to see patterns, good or bad. And then the fourth is falling up. And that is adversity doesn't just knock us down, it can propel growth if interpreted correctly. So the 4 are the happiness advantage, the fulcrum and the lever, the Tetris effect, and falling up. Which one would you like to dive into?
I was thinking the third or the fourth because the first one, I think we already dig deeper in that one. The second one is something that we talk about every Monday, pretty much the mindset piece. So
Mhm.
let's go with the fourth one, falling up.
Okay. Falling up.
Uh,
Adversity doesn't just knock us down, it can propel growth if interpreted correctly.
exactly. And I will use an example because I know you like to do that, and I think it gives a better image of that. And I will use a personal experience from back in the day when I was playing basketball, back in Belgium. So I was playing for a team we were not doing good at all right, and I was playing. I was 15 years old. All right, so my team as the youth team, we're doing pretty well. But the first team of the city, because in Europe is different than here. You don't have it's a lot more divisions and a lot more things like that. So I'm not gonna go in detail with that. But let's just say that the main team of the city were underperforming drastically, and the youth team we were doing pretty good, but we are children. All right. In Belgium, when you're 16 years old, you can play with the first team, so the major team. So I was 15, getting into 16 years old, and everything was going well for me at the time. The first team was not performing. So the coach asked me to train with them because the optic was when I turned 16, I will be able to maybe join the team on the bench, because you need development. And in Europe in general, you work a lot more on the fundamentals and stuff like that. So they don't rush you into it because you are taller or stronger or whatever like that. So I was training with the first team, and I was create a great bond with the two center because I was a 4-5 at the time, the two center in that team, and turned 16, and the team played the first team in the ranking. Like that team was at 1 defeat, I think, at the time of the year, and they were clear favorite. They had the biggest budget and all of that, and we play over there. So they make me play in the reserve team. So again, something different in Europe. You have the first team playing at 8, for example, and at 5:30 you have the reserve team playing, which is like youth or older player who just play against each other.
Mhm.
And they told me, okay, you're going to be the 10th player in the main team, after you play the reserve team. So I played 3 games, and that's very frequent in Europe. When you are young, you play different games. So I played the youth team in the morning, I played the reserve team, and then I played the main team. And on the main team, I was not expecting to play because, first of all, it was my first possible game to play. I just turned 16, and it was against the best team. So there's no reason to even put me in. And they had two players under the basket in that team who were ex-professionals national team. Like they were playing for the national team, but they were in their 39, 40 years old. So they were really old. But of course, they were outskilling everybody else. And they were like, 6'9", 6'10". So, and I was on the bench, like not expecting nothing. Something happened with the main center of our team, unfortunately tore his ACL after 3 minutes. So he's on the bench. So the second center plays, and he got 3 faults in 6 minutes. I see the coach turning on the bench, looking at his bench, and look at me. He said, "Nick, go." So basically, it turned negative from the team, like because of the defection of some players, like someone got hurt, someone got in full trouble, and tell me go. And this is the reason why I think I had a career in basketball, because I was not supposed to play that game, but things happen. And I want to reflect that with business case of sometimes things happen negatively, but you have two things that you can think about. Oh my God, I'm not ready to play that game. Or, what am I going to do? Or actually said, you know what? I'm going to use this as has nothing to lose. So I use motivation to actually making an impact, trying to do anything. Well, my first game with a, adult professional team, I end up with, I think, 26 points and 12 rebounds.
Wow.
As a 16 years old. And it was like, so I got contact after the game was over. The president of that team, who were going to be promoted to the next level, contact me, and I got my first conversation and negotiation about why you don't join us for next year. We will be playing in the higher level. And that's actually the move I made at the end of that year, because I played another 6 months because I finished the year with them. So we finished until in April. So I played the next 5 months or so with them, and we saved us from the derogation. And I think I finished like 20 plus points and 12 rebounds as an average as a 16 years old. And then I moved to that team that I play against. We lost after overtime, so we actually forced an overtime there. We lost in overtime, but they just reached out to me and said, "We want you to come to our team next year," as a young guy. And that's actually what started my career, my professional career in Belgium, is the fact to take advantage of something that happened. And I could have been terrified and said, "No, I'm not ready," because I was not ready. I never played against grown adults at the time, just a training with them. And going and actually realize I can do this. I can do this. And the motivation, of course, go way up. The team motivation go up. We were able to win some games afterwards. We were not winning any games before that. So it's just taking an opportunity in your hands. And I'm sorry, it was a little bit too long, but I think it's important to realize that things happen to you, but the way you react to them are going to define maybe the next 5-10 years of your life or your career in this case.
Yeah, no, it's a inspirational story, because there's some key elements I'll just double click on quickly. One is you had some preparation because you were playing basketball in different divisions before that. So it wasn't like you were just coming off the street. I mean, you were getting some practice in, so to speak. The second is you shaped the path. It's not like you couldn't go in the game. Your coach called you and you had to go in. You went into the game, you're like, all right, I might as well play my best. You didn't shrink from the moment. You went and engaged. You didn't overthink it. You're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of thoughts racing in your mind, but once the whistle blew and the ball started moving, you just acted, and then you responded based on the environment and had a great experience, and that opened up doors of opportunity. So awesome story, and appreciate you sharing, brother. That's a good one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The last three are, I like the way this one is titled, but you don't let that lead you into saying we need to talk about it. But he calls the Zorro Circle. So regain control by focusing on small, manageable wins before scaling change. The sixth is the 20-second rule. Make positive habits easier to start and negative habits harder to access. And then the seventh one is social investment. Strong relationships are the greatest predictor of long-term success and happiness. So the 20-second rule, social investment, and the Zorro Circle. Which one do you want to go with?
I just spoke for 15 minutes, so I will let you decide which one you want to.
Why don't we do the 20-second rule? Make positive
I
habits
like that.
easier to start and negative habits harder to access.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I think for me, the thing that immediately came to mind is another book we've talked about in the past, the Switch, which is a book about change and negative things harder to access. So I'll give a quick example of how I've applied it. In my office, which I'm recording from today, I have a powered desk that raises and lowers. And typically, I end the day and I start the day with the desk in a lowered state. So then I sit in the office chair, and unless I just consciously make the motivation to raise the desk and then I put in the walking platform underneath it, I find myself sitting a lot longer than I should. So, one of the ways that I've stopped the bad habit of starting the day sitting is even if I end the day sitting because of a meeting or whatever, I will hit the button on this powered desk to raise the desk. So, when I come in the first thing in the morning, it's automatically raised. And all I have to do is drop the walking path and start walking. And that has helped shape the path so that I engage in a positive habit early instead of starting the day negative and then letting the day get away from me and then I don't get my steps in. So that was my example I wanted to share.
That's pretty good. Again, habits are everything. Like when I start the journey of public speaking and coaching, I was doing a university of speaker. All right. So it was last year. And one of the thing that's one of the coach were saying, and that's a coach who makes like 600-700K a year speaking engagements. So you know what he's talking about. And he started like 10 years ago. So he's still doing it to this day. And he said the if there is one thing that you need to remember from all the session we had is I still to this day, even though he's successful, he's known in the industry for speaking about leadership. He said, I still have 50 minutes every day, 6 days a week. So he takes one day off. 6 days a week, he has 50 minutes in his calendar somewhere that are non-negotiable. Even when he travel, even whatever happened, 50 minutes. That's all. And he has a ranking of events that needs to be done. So by prioritization, and he goes line by line, never skipping a line, based on he created when he started a prioritization list 1 to 10 with what is the most important thing to do. Like to be successful in booking engagement gigs, and if it's nothing line one, because of that prioritization thing, there's nothing to do, you go to line two. Then you take care of everything line two, then you go to line three, then you go to line four. When it's over after 50 minutes, you take care one by one, 50 minutes, not 51 or 49. And he's very clear about that. When he's done with that, every time he has requests or he has things that happen, during the day, he put them in that prioritization list. All right. So he said in beginning, a lot was in the 1, 2, 3 slots because I start. So I have a lot to outreach to do, replying emails, like sending contracts review or something like that. So he has that list. And now, after 10 years, and he's so, he's high demand, he has a lot more in line 7 to 10. So it changed by time. But for example, he start today 1 to 5, then 50 minutes hit, he's done. The day after, he doesn't start line 5, he start back line 1. So if during the day something came up as a prioritization list, he start there. So he said sometimes it takes like a week, 2 weeks to get to line 10 because of prioritization change, but that doesn't matter. He said the problem with people is that they tend to be willing to handle everything by time and not by prioritization. And his
Mhm.
habit is to actually make sure to never swivel from his 50 minutes a day. Can be morning, lunch, late, whatever it is, but every day 50 minutes. And he said that's how he's successful to fill his calendar with those speaking engagement around United States. And
Mhm.
I love that he has, even after 10 years, he still have the same habit. But he said it's something that is natural to me. I know we'll have to do those 50 minutes, regardless of how busy or slow my day is. So I thought it was really good to share.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. And the consistency, but it's shaping the path. And so the leadership takeaway with the 20-second rule behavioral change is not necessarily just about willpower. It's about environment and friction. And so he created an environment and constructive friction, if you will, to make sure that he stayed with the habit. So that's a great one. So anyway, you can find the link to Sean Achor's book in our description, as well as his TED Talk. He did give some habits that he recommends, like from journaling to practicing acts of kindness, investing intentionally in relationships. A lot of great nuggets that Sean shares. So please, I encourage you to take the 15 minutes to listen to TED Talk and then check out the book, whether audiobook or not. There's a lot of science and data that from his research that supports when you focus on happiness and create environments of happiness, you get far more productive outcomes than not. So that'll do it for this week's episode, winners. Here we are, full steam ahead in 2026. Be sure to check in next week. We'll have an update on Nick's hopefully new, we can say. I feel confident we can say that, best-selling book, The 1% Push. So be sure to tune in next week, and that'll do it for all winners. Make it a great week.
Thank you, winners. Bye-bye.
Bye.